Welcome back, all my 40k fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation to bring you another Warhammer 40k battle report. Traditionally, our Monday battle reports are usually Lane and myself. We give you a good breakdown of the armies and everything, but today Lane had a little bit of a family, I wouldn't say emergency because everything's fine, everything's like that. Just some people under the weather and having to, maintain the family and do the whole family thing. I know that very well, especially with my army of children I have. At any moment, anything can happen and change the entire world and spectrum. But today, my good buddy Jake here is ready to return with the Dark Eldar here. And I will be once again bringing the Grey Knights because there's a good chance I may be traveling to Cincinnati, and I think I'm going to want to bring the Grey Knights. After last game, seeing how much the change with the data slates really did affect Grey Knights. That +1 AP and ignore cover was huge. And all the little tweaks and changes to the Grey Knight stratagems and abilities to be able to emphasize some of the tactics and strategies and stratagems inside of the list really make Grey Knight a full facet. Later this week, I want to do kind of a competitive dive into the differences between the Hypercrypt versus the Grey Knights and the fact of how they function. I kind of got a little Magic the Gathering slang in there too, because that's kind of a similarity how I feel of a lot of where 40k is going in comparison to competitive aspects. But that's all for another time. As always, guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. Turn on the bell to get notified on all the content we're here on the channel, including all these deep dives into Necrons, Grey Knights, Necrons again, maybe some Orcs, Necrons, Dark Eldar. And if I haven't said already, I do play a little Necrons. So let's jump over into one of the biggest changes, because Grey Knights, if you haven't seen my previous video where I did my army description, it's exactly the same. I have not changed anything from it because it was successful, and I'd rather get beat up with what I thought I was running versus some other combos and tricks, which, again, later this week I want to talk to about some other interesting things, as well as Franz, I believe 1889, I may be wrong on the numbers, brought up a very good point about the Paladins and the Ancient being able to take an additional weapon, which was something I completely missed. Previous editions, you could take a weapon on your Ancient, but it was one of the ones that was included in your squad. So it wasn't that big a deal. It was like, oh, okay, cool, I can just isolate everything on this, so it's the last model I remove. Now, it's an extra gun. So there's a lot of thoughts that go in that with Paladins, being able to take 3 or 5 for a 5 or 10 man, then you slap a character in there, there's an extra gun, and there could be a lot of value behind that. But today, I'm still running the Terminators, being able to go, I'm going to spend a command point, drop within 3 inches, and I'm OC 32 because the character is in there. You're not taking that. Oh, I'm sorry. Your Knight's a 10, I'm a 32. Try harder, get wrecked, nerd. But Dark Eldar, the last time you brought Dark Eldar on the channel, they were not as heavily focused and supported as they should have been. They were very, very low tier, very bottom of the bucket as far as the meta watch is concerned. And I mean, you got to take meta watch with a grain of salt. It is a competitive format, and if the armies are not of the highest caliber winning GTs, then you only see some of the very die-hard players playing these factions. Which means that if you're playing a faction as a die-hard player, and you're going to a tournament and you're trying to catch a good run of armies and players that you can take out, and you don't get that, you're looking at just getting hit over and over again. And if you're the only guy that's going there and playing Dark Eldar, and you go, what's that?
I'm used to that.
Yeah, if you're the only one, and you go 2 and 3, well, that's the only 2 and 3 that's getting recorded that week for the percentages. So that's why I say you got to take a little bit of grain of salt with it. Now we've seen a little bit more of some perks to Dark Eldar, which have changed what you're doing, including the fact that I don't see any winged boys over there. There's no Scourges today.
Correct.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. So before we jump on our list, talk to me a little bit about that. You said the Scourges are not coming with you today, and there's a reason.
Yeah, so using the new detachment, we don't start with nearly as many pain tokens, and I really feel like those Scourges shine when you can use them early to get angles, pick off some of their bigger items. But with that 4+ to hit with the lances, the pain tokens are really critical to making them shine.
It definitely is. Like the Scourges, like in some of our matchups, we actually played in the team tournament, And unfortunately, with our matchup, I happen to be playing the one thing of like all the weapons that hate on Dark Eldar, all the abilities that hated on Dark Eldar. But in other matchups, those scourges, when someone's not able to just, drop within 3 inches with every single anti-infantry weapon in their entire army, those scourges can just hide the entire game and just be like, I'm going to shoot down this lane. I'm going to shoot down this lane. Here's 4 guns. Here's 4 guns. And just continue to constantly put threatening presence on those areas, combined with the fact that you also have a lot of poison weapons, which are anti-infantry. So vehicles go, poison weapons take out the infantry. So there is a good progression through the Dark Eldar weapons, just some little items lacking. With that being said, we're going to segue over and take a look at your army today, and we can talk about some of those points. Bear with us. We're going to hear a little bit more about what's going on with the Dark Eldar and Jake's army and mine. I'll just flash it real quick again. Check out the other videos in my channel where we have the Grey Knights in full exposure. It's the exact same list that I ran last week against Lane, but we'll talk about that a little bit. So Jake, let's jump over and talk about your Dark Eldar you're bringing today. And by the way, yes, these pictures are taken on a whiteboard because his paint scheme blends in really well with my backdrop. I've said enough. Jake, your turn. Talk to me about your Dark Eldar.
Perfect. Thank you. So today we're bringing 3 Ravagers. We opted for the Ravagers over Scourges because we're getting the reroll 1s to hit natively. So we're hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, and that's much more efficient when we're not considering the pain token rerolls. We have 2 Raiders. One's going to be packed with Lilith and her 10-man witch friends. We have Incubi because Incubi are awesome right now, with an Archon to give them full reroll hit, full reroll wound, in addition to the Lance ability if they charge from after getting out of a vehicle. We have, moving along, Court of the Archon squad with an additional Archon. Both of these Archons have upgrades. The Incubi one is going to be the Nightmare Shroud to remove Overwatch, and the Court of the Archon is going to be using, I think it's Sadistic Fulcrum, to empower a transport near them when they're empowered. The Archon with the Court of the Archon squad also has the fun guns from a split warrior squad. The other half of the warrior squad, just all poison weapons, is going to be in a Venom. We have 15 Mandrakes, 3 5-mans. We have 2 Succubi. Both are going to be in reserve. It's just a 25mm base for 45 points that can tuck in behind enemy lines or wherever we need them to go. We'll have an additional 5-man warrior squad that's split from one of the 10-mans that's also in reserve. We have 2 beast packs. Those have a 9-inch scout, 12-inch move, reroll charges, very fast, and with the additional AP from pain tokens now, they're actually pretty vicious in close combat. They get a ton of attacks, I think 19 or 20 wounds for the whole squad, so it takes a little bit to chew them up. Looking if I missed anything. Yes, there is another 5-man warrior squad from one of the splits that will start in a Venom. It's all the fun guns, lances, and whatnot. And then we have the Chronos, I guess, to round everything out. Just one of them. Usually can keep it kind of hidden. It is durable if you do shoot at it. And it gives me the 4+ reroll, or the 4+ to get a pain token back when I spend it within 9 inches of it.
All right, and like I said, nothing has changed over here. We are running the same list, which is going to be 3 regular Dread Knights, all with Hammer, Side Cannon, Silencer. 2 Grandmasters. The sword will have the sigil to jump away. The other Dread Knight Grandmaster with the hammer will have an Inescapable Wrath for +1 charge. Then we have 10 Terminators led by a Grandmaster with First to the Fray, and a 10-man squad of Purifiers with Castle and Crow. Last but surely not least, a solo Librarian. Nothing special on him, just the Librarian today. Now, in my last matchup against Lane, there were some questions on First to the Fray and Rapid Ingress. And I see where a lot of people are coming from with certain things. I have sent an email to the TO for the event that I plan on going to. And this is, again, what I recommend. Anytime there is any question you needed answer, get it from a TO, have it on an email. Then you can go there, and if there's any question, go see. I asked the TO ahead of time, and just move on with the event. Move on with it. If the TO says no, that's it. Don't practice it that way. TO says yes, cool, practice that way. I can see where we're kind of in a back and forth. Right now, if I were to take a vote right now, I guarantee people would vote down that a rapid ingress on a first turn, first to the fray does not work that way. And I see where a lot of people are coming from with different things. There is some weird wording, and it turns into the fact where you almost feel like you have to have an advanced English degree sometimes to judge these, because depending on which way you read the abilities, first to the fray trigger treats it says you and your for when they can come in turn one. And rapid ingress says treat it as if it was your turn one. But in the design commentary, it does state you cannot use any excess other abilities. Things like Overwatch and that gain reroll off oath of moments are specifically shooting attacks. So I can see where the back and forth comes in. And I can see where there's some weird rule interactions. Right now, the census from the internet, from what I've seen, is most people believe it is no. I still see a little bit of a different interpretation, but you know what? It doesn't bother me that much. This is a game by all extensive purposes. So all I did was I sent an email to the TO. If the TO rules no, then that's the way it's going to be. But for this game, and for your safety, even without us knowing, if I go first or second, I will not be using rapid ingress on turn one with first to the fray. So we're going to assume that that's the case for it. We're going to assume that that's the way it is, because I want to err on the side of caution. If it's such a powerful ability that if the TO says yes, I mean, it's going to be easy to modify my playstyle. So I'll rather practice without it right now and everything I consider with deployments, and then move on from there. So that is what we'll be doing today. More on that conversation later on. So guys, if you have some comments and you want to talk about that more, wait till a little later this week when I do a deep dive into Grey Knights. That's when I'm going to throw a lot more of the information of what I read and what I see, and how it's actually funny. There's one argument that literally it's like if you read first to the fray first, but then you read the rapid ingress, it doesn't work. But then if you read rapid ingress first and then you read first to the fray, then it does work. It's silly. It's Games Workshop. It's Warhammer, baby. Either way, this game, rapid ingress, is a veto for turn one. Now, all that's left is to decide where we're deploying. Odd or even, my friend?
Even, please.
Oh.
Odd.
It's odd. And that wasn't cheating. It was
cocked.
Yeah, it was cocked. We had to re-roll. Yeah. So it's an odd. So, yeah, I think I will, in this scenario, I will let you deploy first because you have a lot less more to put out there than I do. I don't think it's going to affect too much. That's simply because of the fact of the corners we go to. But honestly, 9 times out of 10, I would probably deploy first because I would want to have the advantageous terrain going into Dark Eldar. But because it's even, you can deploy first, my friend. And we'll be back after deployments. All right, we are deployed. So, Jake, talk to us a little bit about what we are doing today.
We have a Crucible battlefield. We are doing take and hold, so 5 victory points for every objective you control at the end of your command phase.
And that does include the ones in our home territory. It's not just no man's land.
And then maybe a bit of a curveball for Grey Knights, but we have Scrambler fields as the mission rule. So no infiltrators, scout, redeployment, or reserves going directly onto objectives.
Recently in a tournament, I did have a ruling that I was allowed to use the Sigil of Exigence to be able to drop onto an objective. For this, we're going to rule out a no, just because I want the difficulty. I want to practice that way. If it changes up in a tournament, that's a really easy one to go, oh, cool, I guess I can. But in this mission, for this time being, we will not be doing that. So nothing, no deep strike, no redeploys, nothing onto objective markers. All right, deployment. So in reserve, I have my Terminators with Grandmaster, a Dread Knight Grandmaster, the one that can +1 to charge, as well as my Librarian. As far as deployment, I have 2 Dread Knights back here, ready to scoot out and shoot at some Dark Eldar if need be, and then also able to pick up Purifiers in a forward position. You know, with that being able to auto advance 6 and then assault weapon stratagems, I can do a lot with them. Grandmaster with the Sigil right up on the front lines, because if he gets shot at, he can just bounce away. And then over here, we also have a Dread Knight positioned to be able to start playing around on that objective marker if need be, and just getting them out of my deployment zone. All right, Jake, let's talk about this. Well, you have a nice little parking lot back here, don't we?
This swarm. Yeah, we try to just get some cover in case we don't go first. If we do go first, we're just going to shift up. We have our beast packs right up on the line to try to maximize our scout. We go first. We're going to try to engage your 2 forward units in melee, so we don't have the opportunity of you Sigil of Exigenceing out. We do still have to keep an eye out for your Mists of Demos. So moving within 9 inches is a good way to get my guys stuck in the middle with nothing to do.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah. I guess I'm just going to try to react to you while spreading out along my half quickly.
And then we got one lone raider hanging out over here. What do we got? What do we got in the? Or that's a Ravager.
Oh, that's going to be a Ravager.
That's a Ravager. And then over here, what do we got inside this guy?
That Venom has just 5 warriors in it with poison guns. Nothing special.
Nothing special.
They do have sticky, though. All the warriors have sticky in their transports as well.
And then we have a Rabbit. We're starting with a Ravager here. Then we got a Raider, and this is the Witch Raider right here.
Yep, Lilith and her witches.
Witch Raider. That's
Incubi Archon Venom. Archon, Court of the Archon, and Warrior Raider. Fun Gun Warrior Squad in this Venom. And then another Ravager. And then our Mandrakes are just sitting back, hanging out.
And now when you say Fun Gun, talk to us real quick, because they say Fun Gun a couple times. Yep. What are we talking Fun Guns?
So with the ability to split your 10-man into 2 5s, a lot of people will toss their 4 special guns. So a Dark Lance, Blaster, Shredder Cannon, or Splinter Cannon, and Shredder.
Okay. And is the Kronos actually up on top?
Nope, he's going to be down below.
Alrighty.
I'll forget about him if he's hiding.
I completely understand. That happens to me all the time. All right. So in this scenario, do you want to go first or second? Looking at what's going on.
I'd like to go first to see if I can pull off picking those 2 guys, but I would be happy with a second as well. I can scout them into safety if I need to.
I feel like you never really want to go first against Grey Knights because it just gives too much advantage to all the...
Yeah, you're going to pick up stuff.
Yeah, it just feels like it. But, that's one of the things about putting first to the fray in now, being able that if I go first, I can still drop those guys in and start menacing people right on turn 1. So, all right, that's all that's left is the roll to see who's going to go first.
1 roll to rule them all.
I got a 5. Oh, so Grey Knights will be going first. You got a couple scout moves, so what are you looking to do with those guys?
We're going to try and just LOS you using these plates primarily.
Alrighty, so that's going to be the scout moves, and we'll be back after the Grey Knight movement phase. All right, so we finished the Grey Knight movement phase. We got deploy teleport homers, check, and assassinate. Possibly check. Likely. Still a lot of wounds to sink through there, but we do got a good amount of guns to be able to do it with. So we spent a command point to first to the fray drop. The Terminator's in right here. I spread these guys way, way out so that Jake is in a rough position. If he could move all the way to the outside. Actually, from this angle is a good way to see it. He could just spread out and go left and right of them, but then he probably is going to leave that whole squad of Terminators right in his backfield. Needless to say, if he moves into them, I can probably miss the Deimos away. So this is just a chance to get those 5 points on Assassinate, making an early play, make an early hit, and see how this works out. Now, that is going to be a lot of wounds that we do need to dig through before we can get to the characters, so we'll see how that plays out. We do have a lot of shooting. This Grandmaster just moved up here, and he's going to hit that point and get us our deploy teleport homers for center. And then this Dread Knight moved out just to be in a good, strong position, making it really difficult because the Raiders, based on the center templates and everything like that, really right in this pocket where that tape measure is, don't have a good line of sight to get through over to him here. So we have to go all the way over to here, and I wouldn't mind seeing the Raiders hanging out there wide in the open. Be nice and easy. That'd be real juicy for me. All right, so we only have a little bit of shooting. That's good Terminators, and we're going to see how they do, and we'll be right back after their shooting phase. All right, we didn't quite get them. Left this one, the Fiend Duty Man guy thing, creature, with 3 wounds left and the little character guy as well. Now, some may note that, hey, this guy's ball with it, but he does have the character keyword, as Jake showed me. And I was kind of a little leery getting into it. I didn't think I was going to fully be able to pick those guys off, and, well, that's where we were. That's okay. We will pitch that card for a command point. And that means we'll start off with 2, which is kind of nice. That's one thing with Grey Knights. We don't really have any other way to get command points. But we will get deploy teleport homers on the center. And that's going to be it for Grey Knight turn 1 on to Dark Eldar.
All right, welcome back. End of the movement phase of the bottom of turn 1. We have some screening in the backfield for Drukhari to try and prevent his 3-inch deep strikes. We moved up, tried to spread out to contest as much of the board as possible. We moved...
What secondaries did you get for this turn?
Oh, good point. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, aren't I? So we have Cleanse and Capture Enemy Outpost. We are not banking on getting Capture Enemy Outpost this turn. That'll be a command point at the end of the turn. We are going to be able to get 5 points for Cleanse. We hopped our injured Beast Pack up here. They did pass their Battle Shock. And we moved the uninjured Beast Pack over here. They'll be getting cover inside that building. Not that it's super significant, 6 to a 5. But
as we saw during the last turn, there is a lot of wounds. It is something to move.
The only real target is your Grandmaster with the Sigil of Exulgence, so I'm imagining it's going to pop that the second these Ravagers start taking shots.
Right. So something that me and Jake were talking about off camera as well, and I want to get this angle right here, is not overextending. So Jake didn't have a lot of secondaries to be able to score points on. So there's not a whole lot of reason to really go across the board. He does want to get some primaries, and he has made threats. Now, he does control this objective marker over here, as well as this one over here, which means if I don't want him getting a 15, I'm going to have to answer those. Not being able to deep strike down on those objective markers means I have to do work, which is going to open me up. His Ravagers are in really excellent firing lanes, as well as the Raiders and a lot of other gun units are just in excellent fire lanes, so not overextending. But this Ravager, as well as this Ravager, are both facing down that Grandmaster with a Sigil, which means that once Jake goes to shoot, I'm just going to pick him up and move him so that I don't get shot at. So Jake might have a very mild shooting phase right now, and we'll return back after that. But I want to touch base on that in the sense of just because you are fast, just because you can cover the entire board, does not mean you should. Otherwise, it can be very, very damaging, especially with Dread Knights that can just move 14 inches on the side to charge. You know, make me have to do things and make me have to use abilities and stuff to get out of the field and then start picking me off. So Jake's in an excellent position to play into turn 2. So let's see what some of it will be back after the shooting phase. So Dark Eldar Ravagers definitely do hit like trucks. I tested my luck, tested my durability onto them. 3 Dark Lances all the way downtown, hit home. And then a Splinter Cannon from the Venom dropped me down to 2 wounds. So he's still alive, but he is questioning decisions in life. So that's pretty much going to be it for the Dark Eldar turn. You don't have any little crazy rules afterwards, do you?
Nothing that we're going to be using now. If anyone had gotten out of a Venom, there is that ability that will draw a unit back into it at the end of the fight phase as long as the Venom's empty and they're not in engagement range.
So you're going to score a 5 on secondaries and pitch for a command point, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
All right. Now we're going to scoot over into Grey Knights, turn 2. All right. So we are all on the table and done moving. So we got Capture Enemy Outpost and Defend Stronghold. So unfortunately, with the mission special rules and the fact that it's still early in the game, Capture Enemy Outpost is not going to happen. Once again, Jake playing back and being defensive with that prevents me from getting that 8. I'll probably hold that card just because it is an 8-pointer. And then there's Defend Stronghold, which, silly me, I picked up my Purifiers and then failed the Battle Shock on my big guy. Now, I could have spent a command point and auto-passed it, but I want my CP, and I'm just going to do a damage round. I'm just going to try and just do a lot of damage and score points later. So, shouldn't have picked up the Purifiers. I should have kept them down here because they didn't really have a lot of rolls, and I wasn't thinking about Scrambler fields, and I couldn't drop back down on the objective, so that was a womp womp kind of moment. And also, I'm going to get a 0 on primary, but You know what's an easy way to score? If your opponent doesn't have an army there. So that's what we're going to try and do. Remove Dark Eldar and pop vehicles. We got a lot of them to go through, a lot of work to be done, and we'll see what we can make happen. So we brought the Dread Knight that is battle shocked. He rushed over, and another one dropped, and the other one picked up and dropped in. So we have target saturation. Grandmaster moved around the corner after sigilling. He's on the objective, and this Venom moved with a stratagem to move block me so I don't not able to charge the Ravager. So we have 3 Dread Knights that can all shoot at this Ravager. And if we hit that one up, we do have 2 Dread Knights, the first 2, that could then shoot an Elaine at this Ravager. And then we have this Dread Knight that can shoot at this Ravager. And then we have this Dread Knight that could shoot at the Venom or the Ravager. As well as these Purifiers did come in, and we're trying to make some use out of my mess up by trying to flame out this little beast pack that's hiding in there. So we got some work to do, and a lot of it's going to matter on the position and the direction of which units I declare to shoot with first on where other ones go. Because like the Dread Knight does have a silencer that could shoot at these guys, but I could end up just putting everything into this Venom. I could end up needing to go at the Ravager. There is a possibility of a charge on the Venom, but I would lose the objective, or I could just charge in and smack these guys. So there is some options here, and it just depends on how the dice go with each individual shooting, and that's about it. All right, we're going to roll some dice, and we'll be back and see how this goes. So I just learned, I was under the impression that the Ravagers would at least be toughness 10. They are not. They are T9, and they are all 3 dead. One over here, quickly from a Dread Knight. One over here from the Grandmaster Dread Knight, and the one over here from a Grandmaster Dread Knight. That toughness 9 is a bad point for them to be at, especially with these new weapons that the Grandmasters and the Dread Knights have in general. As well as other stuff, we did pick up the Venom over here, and we did pick up the Venom over here, and we picked up most of the Beast Pack that's in here. We got one dude left. We're just going to run him over with a Dread Knight real quick, and that was from a Purifier Smack. So that's going to be it for the turn mostly. We're just going to go into some charges, and we'll talk about that in the cleanup step. But I do not score really a lot of points this turn, and we're going to see how this works out. I honestly kind of feel bad for my good buddy Jake. I did not realize that those Ravagers were only toughness 9. That really hurts them bad. All right, well, on to the charges. Alrighty, so the damaged Dread Knight did make it in. Smash, smash, crush, crush. Beast Pack's gone. Grandmaster charged in as well. Charged both just in case the beat up Dread Knight couldn't do it. And he picked up the other squad with his sweeps. Good old sword there, coming in handy in, to the Drukhari, you know, because I don't have efficient weapons in the Drukhari. I need these swords and other weapons, of course. You know, I need those boosts. And then over here, he just ran under there, grabbed him with a hand, and just launched him into oblivion. All right, so we will actually not score anything this turn. Primaries, secondaries, anything at all. But we've done a lot of damage. This was definitely, as Jake has put it, a Slayer turn, where we just absolutely cleared a lot off the table. So we're going to pass it over to Jake. I know he's got some stuff to work with the Incubis. I'm curious to see what some of this new stuff can do and how it plays out. But that was a very, very, very brutal turn. All right, over to Drukhari.
All right, we are back. We drew deploy teleport homers and investigate signals. To answer that, we dropped mandrakes in this corner, 2 mandrake squads in the opponent's back corner, a lone succubi over here, and 1 more succubi in that corner. So
I like how I no longer have a name. I've made Jake so angry. I'm just the opponent at this point.
The opponent.
It's my opponent.
So we will cap our secondaries. We did get
huge
5 for primary.
Because it'll be 2 points per corner. and then 5 on that deploy teleport. So it's going to end up being a 13-point secondary turn.
And the rest of our movement was really to showcase some of the changes with Drukhari. I have no intention of winning this, but I think we can show you some of the cool stuff they have.
And my Grandmaster ran away with the spoon.
Yeah, Grandmaster missed a demost. Witches moved up to threaten next turn. Court of the Archon, Archon and Warriors jumped out of their Raider over there. We're going to use the Sadistic Fulcrum to empower that Raider to try and get an additional hit in with the Dark Lance. We'll see. We're probably also going to use the stratagem that gives them sustained hits 2. It would be sustained hits 1, but because they're warriors, they get sustained hits 2. Kind of cool with lance weapons. Turn 1 into 3. Incubi jumped out. They have Nightmare Shroud, so they are not overwatchable. And we're going to see what kind of damage they can put into those Terminators. Tests I've run, they should kill 3 to 4. So we'll see.
All right, over to anybody else? Or are we going into shooting?
I think we can move to shooting.
All right, time to do some shooting.
All right, so we are back. Drukhari got pulverized. This squad over here, we popped the stratagem that gave them sustained hits 2. They did a total of 5 damage to this Grandmaster. Is that a Grandmaster? Or
yes, that's a Grandmaster. Yeah,
cool.
And then the other one jumped away. But hey, this Librarian, he's seen better days. He got smacked by that Venom, and he's down to 1.
Yeah, this Venom did get some pot shots off on that Librarian. Took him down to 1. The Incubi squad rushed in, killed 2 guys.
3.
And then the character killed the 3rd guy, like I said.
Oh, okay. Fair,
and then they got mauled. And these guys did not charge because they would rather die on the opponent's turn.
That's going to be it. But you did get that 13 on secondary.
Yes.
All right.
Power through the secondaries.
All right. Time to pick up some guys and do some Grey Knight things. Okay, so unlike last turn, I was able to get a 15 on primary. Right up the middle with the Dreadknights over here. The Terminators in the middle, as well as the Dread Knight hanging out over here. Now we're going to do some cleanups. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to be doing to shoot and try and clean up. Like Dread Knight over here is going to shoot at that character in the corner, try and pick them up, as well as being able to charge back to take those guys out. Librarian and the Dread Knight over here are ready to clear out this back corner. Over here, we got these Dread Knights ready to shoot and do some damage over here, as well as we got a character over here to pick up. And then the stuff we brought in from reserve, we brought down Purifiers who we picked up and dropped them down, and the Dread Knight that came back in off of Mr. Deimos. So one of the things that we're going to try and do is we're going to try and land a charge on this Kronos here so that we can trigger capture enemy outposts. If not, well, then we're not scoring those points, and it was kind of a bummer to hold on to it, but it is an 8-pointer, and that was actually the plan. Was always I was going to threat overload into the Kronos and try and charge him with Dread Knights and stuff, and Jake's like, hey, I'm not going to let you do that. Oh, yeah, and the Terminators here in the middle, they're just going to try and go to town on the Venom. Since there's no one inside of it, once we can just charge it if we need to. Okay, that's it. Let's shoot and see what some stuff can happen. All right, just to make this all inclusive, we moved right from the shooting right into the charge phase. So in the shooting, we were able to pick up both of the Raiders, the one that was hanging out here, and the one here to put the Witches on the ground. In return, the Purifiers that landed over here shot with not everything but the flamethrowers, and were able to pick up most of the squad, leaving Lilith there. She tried to hit her with a Dread Knight, and she survives with 1 wound. We did shoot and pick up the characters in the corner, over here, and all the way over here. And we also were able to shoot and kill the Venom in the middle with the Terminators. Over on the left side, the Dread Knight shot one of the squads off the field of Mandrakes, and then charged the other one, leaving 2 left. Because, you know, we do miss hits and stuff when we fight in combat. But we hit really hard, and 1 wound models, well, they die just like 2 wound models versus Dread Knights. He did work over here. He shot and just, he was the one that picked up that Raider in the middle to put the Witches on the field. And then he shot and picked up the other Raider that was hanging out over here, while this Dread Knight tried to pick up those 2 characters. And then into the fight phase, Grandmaster charged in, smacked most of the squad off the table, and now they're not in combat, so they can wiggle around and maybe score some secondary points. And then we did successfully, on a CP reroll, land the charge on the Chronos, so we were able to capture enemy outposts. And that was where we got our 13 for the turn. Oh, we also charged over here and beat up some of those guys with staying on point. So we did get a 15 on primary and a 13 for the turn for capture enemy outposts and no prisoners. And we will pass it over to the Drukhari as we start to kind of move through everything and clean up and finish up the game.
All right. Drukhari, end of movement. We drew, engage on all fronts and extend battle lines, paid a CP to swap out, extend battle lines, and pulled tempting targets. So out of the frying pan
at center
into the
field.
fire. Yes, definitely not taking tempting targets from them. We can get a 4-quarter engage on all fronts.
I'm only OC 25.
We moved our Archon and his 2 remaining guys over there. We fell back our Mandrakes over there. We
Mandrake's hiding.
deep struck Mandrakes over here. And we brought our last 5-man warrior squad from reserve over here. Lilith scooted up here to hopefully kill some of these guys. And that's
Kronos is battle shocked.
Yeah, Kronos is the only thing battle shocked thing.
Which doesn't affect too much.
Yep.
All right, so it looks like we just got some shooting and some fighting.
End of the Drukhari turn. We had combats all over the field. We killed 1 Dread Knight over there with the Archon's remaining squad. Lilith came up here, killed a couple guys. They did not kill the Kronos, though. Got close. Dread Knight over here only killed 1 warrior. We did no damage to him. And there was no other combat on the field. We will score full for engage on all fronts, and we traded in tempting target for ACP.
Alrighty, I got tempting target and behind enemy lines, and Jake is at a point of lacking caring on the tempting target, so he just said, here you go. You can have it. Now, the otherwise behind enemy lines, we do have the Purifiers and the Dread Knight over there, so we're going to work with that. Basically, we're in position to try and clear everything off the field, and that's going to be what we do. Spend a command point to drop within 3 inches, so we're right there. Shoot these guys down. Library moved into position, and we also just moved this guy over here to shoot Lilith, who's not in combat, and then charge behind us. So we're just going to run through this real quick and make sure and see if everything works out the way we're hoping. And just like that, Drukhari are completely tabled at this point. We will get a 10 on secondaries, and we will get a 15 on primaries going to the next turn. Nothing else on the field. We're going to pick up the Purifiers, and we're going to pick up this Dread Knight over here, and we're going to draw some cards, and then tally up the final total and give you a final score just for completion purposes on the game. Yeah, this is the cleanup point. All right, so we got cleanse and extend battle lines. Cleanse, obviously, we have plenty of objectives to do. Extend battle lines, we already control. So that is going to be the game. With the final score, Grey Knights 91, Drukhari 33. All right, me and Jake, I don't know who I'm playing against right now. Jake and I are going to take a minute and talk about this recap, and then we'll call it a night. So we'll give us just a second to set that up. So first thing I have to say is Games Workshop owes me a little commission because I just sold 3 Dread Knights to this man because he is going to be going out and buying like 3 more Nemesis Dread Knights after this expedition. Jake is also a Grey Knights player. So this was definitely a way to sell him on all of what we now have with Grey Knights, Dread Knights. That +1 AP and the ignore cover is huge. That being said, and like I said before with these are awesome. Like, we have that mid-tier protection right now to be able to go into all like transports and armigers and stuff like that. But man, that toughness 9 is really rough for you guys. Like, there is not enough defense to the Dark Eldar at all. period. The guns are great. The gun profiles look great. Your combat profiles look great, but there is not enough not enough defense there. And I understand. You're Eldar. You're Dark Eldar. You're fast. You're finesse. You're this. You're that. But where is that? Where is that speed? Where is that finesse? Where is something within it? Like how Eldar have Phantasm, which now has been nerfed, but they had that Phantasm to be able to move away. Where is that? Where is the advance and gain +1 to your invuln or -1 to hit or something? Like, forego the actual physical movement. Let's just, we need some darkness here. We need some shadows. Like, where are the dark elves operating out of the shadows right now? And so with that, how do you feel with that? Talk to me about it. Like, what do you see that they could do defensively, that they could fix this army?
I think you kind of hit it on the head. If a vehicle is advancing, like either giving it -1 to hit or giving it an increase to the invuln, it's almost harkening back to like the 4th and 5th edition days when they did get invuln increases for advancing.
They used to also, as the turn sequence would go on, and have that stuff with like power through pain and things like that. And I think that there's something, there's just that one blip. And granted, I get it. Like, you tweak the rules, and if you tweak it too far, you get brokenness.
Yeah.
Drukhari, when their codex released in 9th edition, were absolutely busted. But they weren't busted as far as an army were concerned. They were busted as far as the missions at the time were concerned. Right now, this is neither. It's not, you're not fast enough to just slam into someone's head, right into their face, and just hold their army back for you can lose your entire army, but your opponent can't expand across the field and score points in time.
Yeah.
You're not durable enough to play the floaty tank army game. And you're not cheap enough to just spam all those units in that sense too. It is an improvement. It is an improvement from what we saw before. And with a grain of salt, I literally have every single possible gun that you could imagine and hate. This is a Grey Knight player. It's like we're not anti-demons. We're anti-dark elves. Yeah, they both begin with the letter D. But I mean, it is like you have. I can drop within 3 inches and hit any of your hidden infantry and shoot it to the ground.
Yeah.
My psi cannons now are at the absolute perfect damage profiles.
Popping my vehicles like balloons.
I was over dedicating Dread Knights to make sure that Ravagers would die, and I was taking them one-shotting them. After the psi cannons resolved, you had like 2 wounds left, and the silencer would be able to, oops, I did a wound. Oops, I did damage, and finish them off. So it was just, and I do feel bad about that part for you coming out and for that to be the case. So I do apologize, but
I knew what I was signing up for.
At the same time, now you got to see how powerful those Dread Knights are.
Yeah.
And at the same time too, like one thing that Jake mentioned to me during this is with Drukhari getting this type of buff, going to Cincy, I may see some Drukhari.
Yeah.
And if I run into Drukhari,
play Slayer. I
literally first 2 turns remove their army from the field and just score the last 3 turns. Yeah. I can't stress that enough, that it was just like I can just clear them off the field. At the end of the game, I have 1 Dread Knight and 4 Purifiers off the board because my Terminators came back to full health. Little Mario Brothers 1-up mushroom insert sound effect there. But yeah, that's where we're at. I like this build. I like what I'm running with. I cover the field fast. I have the weapons. I have the strength. I just got to keep running into some more challenges and stuff like that. So let's move over into the Dark Eldar. Now, like you said, you knew coming into this some of the issues. Any thoughts going out of this game as far as some of the units that you'd put into this current list, or with any of the playstyles, or going hindsight, is there anything that you might have done differently with those units?
No, like if I knew Grey Knights were on the table, I would probably forego the new detachment entirely, go back to the old detachment and use Taloses.
Yeah.
This new detachment is not a buff, to be honest. We waited this entire edition to basically have the other half of the army that we needed, but we can't take both halves.
Gotcha.
One generates resources, one has some cool abilities, but you don't have the resources to really maximize them.
Gotcha. And it's like there's not quite enough there with the both. Now, do you feel like with the raiders, do you feel like going heavier into raiders would even help, or like going like 6 to 9 raiders, or 6 I think would be the max?
6 is the max.
Yeah.
Well,
and just having all the transports to just flood the board with a bunch of elves and just absolutely flood the board where your opponent can't even move.
I could see a venom spam maybe working better than a raider spam. But as you have seen, one of your units can pretty consistently kill 2 to 3 of my units, whether they're vehicles or troops. So I don't know if necessarily splitting them up is going to help.
Well, in some scenarios it does, because while I was able to kill like the Venoms and the Raiders and pop them, I was putting the Psy Cannon and the Silencer from the Dread Knight into them. Yeah. So if you have 6 Venoms, 6 Raiders, even if I go out there and hit and kill 5 Venoms, that's it. I killed 5 Venoms. Now you still have 6 Raiders. If I go and kill 6 Raiders, now you still have the Venoms. And a big point that I don't think I didn't give you the opportunity to do, but later in the game, if that were to be a factor, you can charge some of my units with the Venoms, preventing the unit from getting off the field. You know, yes, a Dread Knight could absolutely club a Venom into oblivion, but you still have that possibility to be able to charge and put multiple things in there and just hold everything on the field. And just keeping 2 units on a Dread Knight in combat, I'm not going anywhere. I'm done there. I'm staying there, because even in combat, I can hit one, hit the other, and even if I go into my turn and shoot into combat and finish those things off, I'm still staying in place right there. So I think there is a way to lock Grey Knights in place with Drukhari. The question is, does that build do well across the rest of the things in the meta? Can it deal with things like Hypercrypt? Can it deal with Space Wolves being able to cover the table and deal with speed? Where then on the opposite end, things like your Ravagers and those matchups, Space Wolves have to come across the table. So you have your Beast Packs that are able to stop that charge, that first turn charge, hit and get hit, but then you're able to turn and put all the Ravagers into a squad of TCAV. Yeah. And then from that point, yes, you may be playing a game of attrition from that point, but at least you've taken one Thunder Cav squad and moved it off the field in that scenario.
Probably going back to the other detachment for that build as well. If we're going a Lance build, you want the pain tokens to make the Scourges worthwhile.
Gotcha. So all in all, you're not too thrilled with this detachment. Do you feel like you might end up jumping back over into the other one a bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of? Okay.
Yeah, Lance is cool, but getting the extra AP from the pain token for both detachments makes the Lance a little redundant unless you're fighting very specific armies.
I can see where you mean that. Well, to end it on the happier note, though, Grey Knights, this is a second time that since we've seen the Psy Cannons on the channel, this is the second tabling. First was Votann. Again, a lot of good, strong weapons in that. And I heard someone say before, they were like, oh, well, you had strong weapons in Votann, you had strong weapons into now Drukhari. What I think people are going to see really quick is that the Psy Cannon with the AP2 and the Ignore cover in general is a strong weapon. It's strength 10, so units that are T5, when you look at things like Terminators and go, oh, well, they have a 4-up invuln. That's great. I'm putting them on their 4-up invuln every single time. And if you want to spend a command point to Armor of Contempt, or in our case, True Silver Armor, that's where that command point's going. And because it's, okay, I'm going to shoot this Dread Knight at this target. You did that, you Armor of Contempt, you True Silvered. Okay, guess what? Now I'm going to shoot over here, and that's where we're putting you at. Where it's like the 4-up invuln isn't stopping any extra AP. We're getting to that 4-up, and we're going to hit that 4-up. And that's where you're going to be at. And we're maximizing so much value out of that weapon now. And I really just feel like that's where it is. And like a lot of people still, I hear some people like, oh yeah, but we don't have the ability to punch up. What are we doing punching up? We're literally punching up. We're literally coming at you with a hammer and going, sure, here you go. Let me charge in 16 dice on the tank shock on most targets and then smack you with a hammer. It's brutal. It's brutal. And I still do think there's a lot to be in here. And I feel like that's your takeaway from this is you're like, man, I just want to go get some more Dread Knights. I want to do this.
That looked
like a lot of fun. All right. Well, Jake, thank you very much for coming out and getting the game, like I said, on the fly last minute. Appreciate you, man. That really, I'm just trying to get some reps in with this list right now and see. And yeah, this is out of my wheelhouse. I'm doing damage. I ain't just playing games. I'm doing damage now. So, all right, guys, everyone out there, thank you for watching. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Good luck in Cincinnati.
Hopefully, as long as I can go. As long as I can go. Talk to you again soon.